All right. So I was asked, where is everybody in our little circle here? And I'm going to draw on this one and scan it later. So if we go to the Y at the end of the word bay, of course, the actual place where you are does not have the words hangar bay written across the bottom, right? But for our map, if we go to bay and go to the end of it and then go all the way over basically to where the 3 would be on a clock, almost against the wall, that's where there's this glowy circle that you can stand on is. And at the moment, there is the what appears to be sort of the primary speaker of the Scrang is there, and several other Scrang who have just violently hurled Hiver away from that circle. So Hiver is sprawled or partly, hovering just off the floor from having been flung there at about exactly, I'd say 4:30 on that clock. And if not exactly up against the edge, close to it. So that's from there is where Hiver was able to converse with Dukan, because Dukan is with a bunch of thrall who happen to be very much at 6 o'clock to 4 o'clock and extending well into the bay, well toward the middle. So they've got kind of this cookie cutter section there, the thrall, the ones with a single glowy thing. And they're the ones who have basically foamed down Dukan, whom I see as kind of a mummified little pillar of foam with their head sticking out. And there are a bunch of thrall who are sort of taking custody of Dukan, whom they perceive to have chemically assaulted them, not entirely unjustifiably, I might
Yeah,
add. And
not
um,
necessarily untrue.
and but Hiver is, you can, if Dukan is kind of near, is in that zone and closer to the center, then you can see that Hiver and Dukan aren't that far away from each other, and you guys had just talked to each other at the end of the last session. Now, over around 7 and 8 o'clock, and extending also into the middle, is where the Avics are, with their various aviary style perches set up at different levels, of course. And given everything that had happened, the um, the security person had pulled the emissary back into those bars, back well into sort of this Avix territory, if you will. And um, Kixcall is right there with them, because remember, you had all buddied up to share data and stuff like that. And also, Kixcall had flown up high and got a good look at everything. So exactly where she is kind of up to Helma, because I'm not really. I think you came back and told the emissary
Now
all that
with the
stuff.
flock.
Right. Okay.
I'll tell you if that
Yeah.
changes.
And then up at around 10 and 11 o'clock is where the very paramilitary organization and arrangement of the Voir and the Issaw are. So they're kind of at that upper left hand quadrant. The Scrang um, are effectively around the opening to that storage area, and that leaves the Luca, who should probably be around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Um, and these aren't the only places that are really very definitely marked or stated territory. Would be the Avix with their setup and their physical arrangement, and the effective staging of the Voir and the Issaw have informally kind of marked out territory. So when I talk about where individuals are, I'm not really talking about where they're encamped. I'm just talking about where the groups happen to be mostly centered at this time. Our next point is to remind you all that Hiver has explicitly claimed Dukin as Hive. And the
Yes.
Thrall, as I mentioned last time, do not seem sympathetic, or at least do not immediately appear sympathetic to this idea because they have Dukin. Thank you very much. And oh yes, and the Scrang have definitely taken control of the speaking spot, and have accused the Esau and the Voir of the explosion for the explosion. Um, and so right now, Hiver attempting to say otherwise or make their own case about it has been ejected forcibly from that spot. So things are looking. Oh, and yeah, things are looking a little tense. The name of the emissary of the Avix is
Yes.
Nizanalotl. So the Nizanalotl of the Avix is conferring with the security person, Olmak, and they, of course, are talking with Kixakol, who has just informed them of what she has perceived. And Nizanalotl is looking at the Scrang over there and says to the two of you, the the nest is tipping over. Something's going badly awry here. And then we have the Thrall, who are gazing. All these little monocular lights are now looking straight at Hiver. And one of them is directing communication to Hiver, which is weird because all the senses are wrong. The Thrall is communicating, but the senses are all wrong. It's like smells don't sound like that, or lights don't smell like that, and there's something there's trouble going on there for Hiver, probably for everybody. And then Dukin, of course, although physically immobilized at the moment, that doesn't stop Dukin from doing tons of things, if I'm reading those traits right. So
Yeah.
physical motion is not really necessarily, that big a deal. But you are kind of foamed in terms of scenting anybody. That's tough. It would be tough. You'd have, I would give you 1 die, right? Because it's tough if you try to do that. Okay. Forward and onward. Let's all chit chat and not run over each other's sentences while we do it. That's me. That's telling myself.
So Dukin will, realizing that the Thrall's seeing color, I'll try to use my bioluminescence to exude feelings of calm, reassurance, something more gentle, and just kind of point around the room, but kind of settling on the Scrang. I'll be like, I think your attention needs to be elsewhere.
That might not even require
to communicate.
That might not even be a role necessary for some of that. We'll see how this all plays out in a minute. So there you go. And Hiver or Kixcall. If either Hiver or Kixcall wants to do things, or where are your actions now?
Kixical, do you have anything? Because if not, then Hyber has. Because Hyber, kind of stands up and says, my understanding of this meeting was that Hyber would become, that all hives would become one hive. Right now, it is factitious and could lead to mulching, or even worse, annihilation. That's what Hyber says.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is potentially perceived as a threat, even though it's not a threat. So who knows how that's going to bounce in just a moment.
Right.
So I'm thinking about when roles are going to come into this. I'm going to talk more about what happens, and we'll see when that turns into roles for people. Again, Helma, the people who are talking with you are concluding that the Scrang are a serious problem and that they're trying to either sabotage it or take it over to control the narrative of how this should go, right? And that's what your emissary is saying. Nizana Lotol is telling you. I have concluded that the Scrang are not according with their agreement, although they're pretending to. And asks Olmec, with whom do we ally? Olmec unhesitatingly points toward the Voir and the Issaw and says, they have suffered most. They have offered us no threat.
Makes no sense. Something is wrong. How would the Scrang win if we all descend on each other?
According to my analysis, says the emissary, based on the information that you've provided as well as my voluminous databanks, waving the little pad, the Scrang would benefit. The Scrang are most threatened not by alliance among the powers, but by the rise of the voices of those whom they have oppressed. So, even at the risk of hostilities, removing the Issaw and the Voir from consideration as equals is to the Scrang's advantage more than to anyone else. At the very least, we should open communication to at least reassure those factions or those peoples that we did not initiate the attack upon their emissary. Because remember, the Issaw emissary has been killed. But sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that.
Where people are talking is empty, or is it there's somebody there? I'm sorry, Ron.
No, we did it again. I just quickly want to say to Helma that the emissary is asking your views and not telling you to shut up. So you're being, they're explaining themselves fairly instead of saying, "Oh, be quiet, we have it." But they're interested in. The emissary and the security person, the three of you are trying to decide what to do, and that's kind of where they're looking at it right now. Okay, Renee.
Dugan, will look askingly at the thrall and say, "Do you mind? May I speak to address the room? Are you okay with that?" Yeah.
This is
All right.
the thrall at this point. Really, it's a matter of jumping one way or another. They've got Hiver there.
Yeah.
They and in a moment of indecision, they do something very strange. All of the thrall, except for two, suddenly go into, now the anatomy is not quite human, but into kneeling position, into their equivalent of kneeling. Just wham, like a bunch of, like, I don't know, mushrooms or something. Boom, right down. Two of them remain standing, and you will see that the patterns of their appearance, both of their scales and their clothing, is an exact photographic negative of each other. Those two. And one says, strength or the appearance of strength must be maintained. We may not waver. We may not fall behind the scrang. We must be perceived as at the forefront and strong. The other one says, balance and the sharing of weaknesses is the only path forward. Vulnerability becomes the only method by which the scrang may be countered and perhaps included. So the two of them are saying this. They're saying this complete. Both of them are saying this to you, and they're saying it in complete opposition. There's something weird culturally going on here, or something. So but so you are being sort of confronted with these two, and there's clearly a moment of decision going on here. However, you can see at this moment that you are currently being advanced upon by some scrang who look as though they're willing to throw up kind of a cordon around you in kind of a confining way.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll give them the equivalent of a Hiver side eye, where like I'm just like, you know, like, yeah, don't do it. Like, there will be trouble. Also, did I hear the thrall say this?
Yeah, because you're right there.
Aloud?
You're right, yes. And they are saying it aloud. And furthermore, that you're right there next to them, and your attention has largely been on, at least a fair amount of your attention is on Dukan. I know that. Right. So therefore, it makes sense that you're actually, aware of this exchange. And so the first one says, Hiver is vulnerable and isolated. The scrang dislike Hiver. We gain great alliance, we gain great strength by participating in the destruction of the dangerous insect. As we all know, an enemy to all other beings who only thinks of sustenance and assimilation, hardly even more than an animal. The other thrall says, Hiver has shown more empathy than anyone thus far. And has claims the safety of this very being. So the two of them again are, yes, go ahead.
I'll say that's me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, right.
Yes.
Gotcha.